The stories that you tell are the stories that define your life, whether you're telling these stories to somebody else or yourself. So let me share with you something very powerful. I lived in an ashram, and the guru, who's in his 80s from India, said one thing that was so profound. He said, before the mind of man came to this planet, there were just events that happened. Tidal waves or fires, they might demolish the land or even kill animals. And they weren't called good or bad because there was no spin on them. They were just events. And then the mind of man came to the planet and we began to put meaning on everything. There's no inherent meaning in anything in life until we add that meaning with our mind. We call things good, we call things bad, we call things right, we call things wrong. And it's in this idea, the mind is running constantly, running away from pain and running toward pleasure. And it's that process that creates the duality and eventually all the suffering on the planet. So I want to ask you the question, what are the stories that you're telling yourself? Hello, my name is Vincent Dowd, and I'm the founder of Authentic Elevation, where we work on the inner dimensions to help really discover who you really are, the true nature of yourself. Now, I put together a very powerful tool, which I'm going to give to you for free. So stick around because this can change your life. It's a phenomenal tool. It's helped a lot of people. Now, I brought together the resources of many of my mentors, including Byron Katie, who I love. Now, let me just tell you why this started, because I found as I traveled the world and I tell a lot of stories that a lot of people tell stories, and they tell stories all their lives. In fact, if I take you back before the mind of man came to the planet, and then eventually man inhabited the planet. And I say man as female and male, but we used to sit around these campfires and we would tell stories. We would talk about the conquests that we had in our tribes. We would talk also about potentially the hunt that we had during the day and all these amazing stories. And what happens is our society and our tribes began to build their ideas, their religions, their communities, all based on storytelling. That's how we would pass down the lessons. And the interesting thing is, stories fill our mind. The stories we tell ourselves and the stories we tell others will really define an organization, a tribe, a civilization, even the entire planet. So here's the thing I want to ask you. What stories are you telling yourself? And what kind of meaning do you put on those stories? So I'm going to take you through a process that can really shift your life and move you out of a lot of suffering, move you out of a lot of pain. And to do that, you're going to want to use the tool that I've put together called the Story Sniper Worksheet. And I will put a link below on how to get that for free so you can use this. You can use this video as a guide. But the one thing I want you to understand is we're going to put that story that you're telling yourself or even others into a scope, a target. And we're going to pinpoint that story, and we're going to start to dissect it. We're going to start to analyze it. We're going to sort, sift, and separate the truth from the lies. And to do that, we have to act like a crime scene investigator. So again, just remember, everything is a story. It doesn't mean it's right or it's wrong, but it can serve you or it can actually work against you. And most people have a lot of negative stories that work against them. So the first question I'm going to ask is this. When you have something happen in your life, it's going to cause an issue, right? It's an event. Just like Gurudev talked about, events happened on the planet before the mind of man. A tidal wave hits and everybody thinks, oh, people shouldn't die that way. Or that's so horrible that the forest fire hit. We're adding meaning to it, but to the planet, it's just an event. It always happens. It happens throughout history until we add meaning to it. So there's going to be something called a trigger. The trigger is the thing, the catalyst that's going to cause you to start to spin these stories. So let me give you an example. Let's just say I have a friend named Greg, and let's say I've been hanging out with Greg and we have mutual friends, and I hear through the grapevine that Greg is having this big party. And in the big party, what's happening is very interesting is I haven't been invited, but everybody I know is invited. And I hear that I'm not invited. Everybody's invited. They're going to this party. All of a sudden, I start to build this resentment. Why didn't Greg invite me? Does he really not like me? I've been there for Greg. What about the other people? Do they not want me to be there? Is there somebody? What's going on? So I start to question everything that's going on with this party, and I can start to build a story in my mind. Maybe you've done that. I know I've done it with my partners where so maybe a partner doesn't call me for a while and I start to wonder what's going on. They usually call me. What are they doing? Are they like seeing somebody else? What's going on? And you can start to build these stories depending on the way you perceive the world. And it happens all the time, oftentimes just at a level where we're not even consciously aware that we start to do this. So what we want to start to do is dissect this story when we start to feel resistance. So what's going to cause us to have issues is a person, a place, or a thing, okay? And we're going to start to build a story on that. So the stories are really critical to understand. Now, people, places, and things are the circumstances or the catalyst that will cause us to build the story. And we're going to push back against it. We're not going to like it the way it is. We want reality to be something different than it is. That is called resistance. And that's where we have most of our suffering. What we really want to do in life is be able to flow through life without expectations, without demands, just allowing the world to be as it is and for ourselves to be as we are. So we accept ourselves the way we are and the world the way it is without making it fall into a certain blueprint for us to be okay. So we want to dissect these stories. So let's say this is an example. The story I have coming up right now is that Greg is dishonorable. I can't believe he didn't invite me to this party. Does he not like me? Did I say something? So my mind starts to look for reasons to support the evidence that I'm not invited to a party. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, number one, is you want to write down the trigger. What is it that triggers you? And this will be on the worksheet, by the way, below. So you can print the worksheet and use this. And use it every day. It will change your life. It will radically change your life. Because you'll dig in to not only know yourself better, but to see how these stories impact your life in a positive or a negative way. So we want to find that trigger, that catalyst, and we write it down. In this case, the trigger was an event where I heard from somebody that Greg did not invite me. Now it triggers me. Why does it trigger me? So we got to write down why it triggers me. Well, it triggers me because I feel like it's disloyal. Like I've been there for Greg. I was there for him for years, and he's having this birthday party and I'm not invited. And I thought I was a good friend of his. So I feel like he's two-faced, right? So I'm starting to feel these things coming up. I write it down. It's important. Now, you might find some anger coming up, especially if you're a man. And let me do a little sidebar here. There is another worksheet I put together called Accept the Anger Worksheet. And what it stems from is the fact that a lot of people have had a lot of anger in their life, but because society doesn't consider anger an okay emotion, we push it down. And a lot of men do this because as kids growing up, little boys, we were told, don't cry, don't be a pussy, all these things. My dad said these kind of things. So you don't want to be alienated from your tribe of men. So you push these feelings down and they build within you like an energy that builds more and more over time. And eventually men oftentimes will lash out on their children or their spouse in an angry way that causes a violent man, a toxic man. And it's a lot of times because they haven't dealt with the inner anger. So if you have not done that work first, I encourage you to get my Accept the Anger worksheet and work with that first, okay? And then come back and do this. You can do this first, it's okay, but I just want you to know there might be anger within you that you've never let out that's like a ticking time bomb ready to go off. So if you need that worksheet, let me know below. I'll see if I can post it here as well. I'm going to do another video on anger because that's a whole different topic. But right now, back to the storytelling. We want to write down that trigger. What caused us to start to feel this and what's coming up inside of us? Why did I get triggered? And we want to write that down. And that way we're very aware of our triggers and we know in the future, if things happen, we might know there's a trigger that causes me to start to feel certain ways and to create these stories. The number 2 question, you want to write this down. What is the story that I'm telling myself and others? Because you know what happens is people start to gossip. They'll start to say, you know what, did you hear Greg didn't invite me to the party? Are you invited to the party? I think Greg doesn't like me anymore. I think, in fact, Greg might be using me as a friend. And you might start to create these stories that you're starting to tell other people and you're telling yourself. And the more you tell it, the more you believe it and the more you might even add to it. So the story I created, write it down, the story I created, and write it out exactly as you feel and think in this moment right now. You're going to investigate these feelings, and you want to put your light of awareness on it and sit with it and ask, have there been same feelings or the same thoughts that have come up in the past on similar stories? And you're going to write yes or no. And by the way, the worksheet's going to make this very easy for you. And could this be a reoccurring pattern in your life? And what we're looking for is those reoccurring patterns, those reoccurring triggers that lead you in a negative direction. Remember, we're running toward pleasure, we're running away from pain. So we've got to be able to isolate where we're at with this story. Now, what if the story, and this is really important, once you've looked at the story, the trigger of the story, you have these stories coming up. What if the story that you're believing right now, that you're telling others, is not true? So the third question is the story that you're creating right now in your imagination, because you don't know all the facts, you don't know everything, but you're creating a story, is it true? Yes or no? You're going to write that out on the worksheet. And here's the thing, you might say, yes, it's totally true. I totally know this is true. So the fourth question is really important, because the question is going to challenge that. It's like, do you know? And the key word there is no. Do you know absolutely that this story is 100% true? And you're going to have to sit with yourself and ask yourself, because a lot of people do not know. And the word no is so important, because I'm not asking if you believe it's true. You can believe whatever you want, but we know that beliefs come and go, they change. Just by the word itself, belief means you don't know. When you know, right? So when you know, you can write yes. If you don't know it's true, then you have to write no. So it's hard, especially again, if you're a man, because men have been programmed all our lives, this next question coming up, not to feel. I know for me as a little boy growing up, my dad was very brutal. He didn't like crying. I was around a lot of men. My martial arts instructor didn't like crying. I was a little boy who was very sensitive, and I felt very emotional oftentimes, and I was ridiculed for crying. So I learned early on not to cry. Even though I felt the pain, I felt the emotions coming up, I could not cry. And what we do is we stifle those emotions as men. And then you get a lot of men that are tyrants. Our society has an environment where some feelings are okay. You can be happy, but you cannot be sad. You can be joyful, but you cannot be angry. So there's a lot of, yes, this is okay, that's not okay, because it causes uncomfort in society. And that's the problem. So we're not authentic, and we push a lot of emotions down. And those emotions that are not expressed become repressed. And when they become repressed, you create a problem in your system. You create an energetic block, an energy where it will start to build upon itself, and eventually it becomes very toxic to your body, to your mind, and eventually it's going to blow up, and you're going to attack somebody. It could be your children, like my dad did to me. It could be your spouse. It could be somebody that you don't even know, and you're going to go off. And listen, at the extreme level, we see men who become violent and they hurt people. We see not as much women, because women in society, it's okay to be emotional, not for men. And this is why we need to work on the accept the anger worksheet before we get to this part. But even if you haven't done that worksheet yet, go through and just start to, you're going to go through this next question. You're going to start to look at what it is that you're feeling. So we're going to move from thinking to feeling. So don't get into the story, go into the body, drop down into the body and feel what it feels like. So question number 5 is, what feelings surface inside of me when I believe that this story is true? You're going to write it down. In fact, I might say, I feel rage right now. It burns deep inside of me. I feel aggressive. I feel alienated. I feel bitter, because I feel that I've given so much to Greg and he's not even inviting me to his birthday party. And so that would be an example. And this opens an old wound. A lot of times this will go back to wounds as our childhood, wounds with our parents or society or something that happened in our youth. And it's reopening that wound, pouring some salt in it. The good thing is it's going to bring light to the wound, and light will heal. So after you write that down, what feelings you're feeling, and really feel it, embody it. Question number 6 is, what specific thoughts or desired actions arise from those feelings? So what thoughts and actions? So you might think, you know what? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to Greg. Next time I see him, I'm going to punch him in the throat. Or I'm going to, and you can listen, this is where you need to take your censorship off. You need to be authentic with this and do this in your own privacy so you can be truly authentic. You need to let these things out. If you want to cuss, cuss. If you want to scream it out, scream it out. The way it's going to heal is you need to reveal it to heal it. You need to bring it forth and bring light to it so it can be healed. It's a lot of past stuff that's coming up, a lot of current stuff that's acting as a catalyst. So you want to bring it up and allow it to heal. Now you can have somebody do this with you, if somebody you trust, and they can go over this worksheet with you and kind of push you to bring it out. Okay. So the above question has started to shed light on the thoughts that you're having and the desired actions, right? So that arise from these. So you might have a negative action that you want to take. You might want to punch them. You might want to beat somebody up. You might want to, do all kinds of things. And those are because of the feelings that you're having and the thoughts. The feelings and the thoughts work together. So if I want to punch Craig in the throat, that's not going to benefit me. And it's okay. Don't try to push that down. If you feel like punching him in the throat, feel it. Don't do it, but feel it and write it down. And let that feeling come over you so you understand what it is that you want to do and what action you want to take. Now, you might think I'm a total nut job here, but you would be correct because we're all kind of nutty in this way. Everyone in society is crazy, right? The mind itself is crazy. A lot of times what goes on in the mind of people we never see, but there's a lot of going on. If you will meditate and sit with yourself and watch all the thoughts that come up that are not even yours, these are just thoughts in the one mind out there. There's some crazy things that come up, but energy must move through us. All we're doing is allowing energy to move so it can heal. But if we block it, if we hold it down, it builds upon itself, kind of like a dam building up that water until one day it breaks the dam and floods the city. That's not what we want. So if you want to be more powerful in your life or in business or in your relationships, you want to have great relationships, you must learn to master yourself. And that's especially with emotions and your actions. So most people wait until they have hit rock bottom before they even investigate the life, the feelings, the thoughts, the actions. And by that time, oftentimes they've already hurt other people or themselves. Let's go to question number 7. Question number 7 is, if I take a step back from the story and take a step back from the emotions and the thoughts, what is it that I actually desire in this moment for myself and for the other, or for both of us? What do I really desire? Not what I want to do because of the catalyst, but what do I really want to happen? So your answer might be, well, I want Greg to appreciate me enough to tell me he appreciates me and to invite me to something like this. And I want Greg to always feel like he can be honest with me and tell me the truth, even if it hurts me, or if there's something I did that he's forthcoming with that authentic truth. And I want both of us to be able to respect each other and have a mutual relationship where we can connect, but also call each other on our shit. That's what I really want. I want harmony. I want a great friend. And a great friend is not somebody that kowtows to me. A great friend is somebody that will call me on my shit, and I will not react. I will listen and then take it in and then make changes according to my own authentic nature that will benefit me and my partner or my friend or whoever it is that you're working with. So we've been in this storytelling mode, and we too easy get caught up in our mental tsunami. A lot of times we can't slow down our thoughts, our embedded emotions that are pushing us to do certain things. And this can create a dangerous pattern that repeats again and again. So what we're doing really is we're adding energy to a victim story and creating a bigger tsunami of problems. And that's why this worksheet is so important. When we see what really we desire is not the reaction, but it's something deeper in our heart, then what we can do is we can step out of this pattern, we can interrupt the pattern, we can interrupt that trigger, and we can actually make real changes in our lives. So it comes down to this. Does the original story give you what you want? Does the original story give you what you want? Will it guide you in the direction that you're really searching for? Okay, and odds are your original story is going to be not the story that helps you get there. So question number 8 now. Will the current story provide you with the desire you seek? And again, when we look at the original story that I'm telling myself or others, if I look at that, the story was about Greg not liking me, not telling me things. Maybe my friends didn't like me. That's not serving me. It's not serving them, and it creates more trauma. So it doesn't get me what I want, and that would be a no on number 8 for me in this example. So dive into that a little bit. Now, question 9 is, what new possibilities open up if the original story that we're telling ourselves and others is false? So that whole story we built, all the emotion, the tsunami of information, if that is false, what new opportunities are opened up for us to be able to dive in and really have a radical shift, a radical change in a whole new way? And don't get caught up in the event, get caught up in understanding that there's an opportunity for a new way of being, a new way of communication, a new way of feeling, and a new way of acting. And that is the 9 questions on the Story Sniper Worksheet. A couple things on the follow-up page is the sniper's nest. Keep in mind, I'm going to kind of define these for you because you're going to see them on the worksheet. We must have perspective both around us and inside of us. So we have perspective around us and inside of us. So when we're looking at a story, we've always got to remember to step outside of the story, play the role of being in the story, the center, then play the role of being Greg or the other person, looking back at yourself and understanding there might be some other perspectives that we are not aware of. This is the first step. We find our best perspective by creating a sniper's nest. Remember, snipers, they'll get in a certain area and they'll nest themselves in. This allows us to anchor and steady our aim on the story, right? So we're going to take a look at that story as if it's outside of us, and we can look around that story for the best point of entry. We're going to, number 2, we're going to identify the target. So we're aiming at the original story that we're creating and the original story that we told to ourselves immediately after we were triggered. Once that trigger hit, we started to talk to ourselves. And if that story is true or false, good or bad, you're going to have labels for it. This is just about identifying the story that is driving the feelings. That is our target, the story. Number 3 is scoping the target, right? So in the story, what we want to do is we want to make that story the target. However, the hit points are the feelings that give us, the feelings that we get after we're triggered. So those are the hit points. We want to feel those feelings and understand them. It's not whether they're true or false, good or bad. Really what it's about is they're going to give us the opportunity to feel fully the emotions, right? It's all emotion is energy and motion, energy and motion. And we're going to feel it, but we're not going to let it go unchecked. We need to identify it because there's a likelihood that this is coming from the past. And we need to look at these emotions and the triggers and what's causing this pain. And then number 4, we're going to take the shot. To take the shot, if we have done the work, what's going to happen? Then we're going to hit our target and we're going to kill the bullshit that's going on in our head. The illusion, the story that we created, it's imagination and fantasy that's not true. In most cases, it's not true. And gaining full clarity, often through a complicated and sometimes impossible situation. But using this work, we can create the space. And that's all this is creating space that allows us to discover exactly what we really desire. And at this point, we will have really created the congruency. And this is going to open up a whole new world of possibilities for you to know yourself, to communicate better, to be more effective, to control your emotions and your thinking, and to allow yourself to steer in a direction that's going to benefit you, the other, and everybody around you. So I hope you really enjoyed this. Please comment below. Let me know what you think. Utilize the sheet. And when you do, come back and tell me about how it's impacted you. You can download it below in the link. I've put it below this video. Also, please do share this, like this, follow me, and click the bell, because every time you do, obviously, when I put up a new video, you're going to be notified. But this Story Sniper worksheet, this process has helped a lot of people that I've coached, a lot of my clients. It's helped me. Again, I brought in different pieces from my mentors, main mentor on this was Byron Katie, but also my meditation, because the more I sit in meditation, the more I see that you cannot believe your thoughts. Your thoughts are not true. Most of the time, they are leading you astray. You can replace negative thoughts with positive thoughts. But again, all thinking is really leading us in an infinite loop of fragmentation. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please let me know what you think. Like it, love it, share it. Thanks so much. I'll look forward to seeing you on the next video.